Hi, folks. I wanted to just let you know for people who have the types of conditions that I have, whether that is autonomic function disorders or any kind of autoimmune issue. I know for a lot of us, skin becomes very hard to manage and clean and so forth, and over time, not being able to wash the face with something, even if it's just good clean water, which is itself hard to come by these days, it can end up really hurting physically. So you probably notice, and on YouTube, or on Zoom, where I film some of these, it's very common that the coloring um, is quite sensitive to the redness here that I have, and that's adrenal disorder stuff. Some people call it rosacea, but at kind of root cause, um, it's adrenal disorderliness. We've talked about that in another video too. So I wanted to just share what I have been doing. It's been years coming up with this. I've mostly just really struggled with my skin since it's become sensitive and since my body's become so sensitive. But I now have an option, and so it might be worth sharing. So what I'm using at this point is honey and sunflower oil, organic, like cold pressed sunflower oil. Not the same as random sunflower oil you get at the store. So make sure it's organic, make sure it's cold pressed. Um, this is, you can see this honey looks very fluid. It's because it is. This is a raw honey. You want to make sure it's raw because when something is heated past a certain point, it loses a lot of its nutritive value. And the natural tannins in honey, I was afraid to use them on my skin for a long time because my skin's been so dry for so long. And those tannins, I was worried about it being kind of attacking, being better for an oily skin. But I'm finding that it is good for toning the skin. And I suspect it is good. I mean, my skin right now is pretty combination. It's on the drier side, but combination. And then this turns into cystic acne pretty often. So what I do is to keep the honey from seizing. I don't know if you've ever tried to put honey in cold water, but it's a terrible idea. It seizes up. It just, it gets cold and kind of solid. So in order to keep it from doing that and to be able to use my honey more regularly and more things, I often add a little water to it anyway. Now you can't leave it out when you do that. You really want to put it in the fridge because it will mold quicker if it has that bit of water in it. Not immediately, but you just got to keep an eye on it. So if you're, this takes a while to use probably. You probably want to keep it in the fridge if you can, but it's fine to keep it in the fridge if you have a little water in it because it will still come out pretty nicely. Obviously this is too watery to use on like toast, but but for other purposes it's fine. So what I do is just add that little bit of water in. It also allows you, I initially started adding water to my honey because raw honey crystallizes over time, or it already has so much beeswax in it that it's hard to kind of get all of it. And this lets you get all of the honey. So over time, I'll keep kind of adding water to this and it'll get that crystallization out of there. But now what I do is I just put a little bit of this into a little 4-ounce mason jar. If you have a little spray bottle, that would work fine too. My spray bottles are kind of janky. They just don't work very well. So, but that would actually be preferable. But keep in mind, it is sweet. Like it does have sugar in it, so you don't want to spray it and have it end up in your hair, and then your hair gets all sweet and stuff, So it'll like, get kind of sticky. But I just put it on just like 3 drops of this works real well, and I just kind of pat it on, and then I leave it for about a minute. The first time I did it, I left it for a little longer. Just once it starts to kind of tighten, if your skin is sensitive and you have these conditions, you have a lot of chemical sensitivities, probably you probably have a lot of food sensitivities. There's all kinds of sensitivity happening. So you don't want to like get it to going to the other side of, you don't want it going on the dark side, right? Of things. You want it to stay on the good side. So just kind of pat it in there, just a few drops, whatever covers your face. I have found it to be safe to use in my eye area. Occasionally my eyes, my eyelids get oily and then it really irritates my eyes. But if, you do you, obviously. And so just because it works around my eyes doesn't mean it will around yours. Certainly it's also safe to do anywhere on the body is fine. Um, but the body, the skin is naturally acidic pH, slightly acidic pH. But when you start having these disorders, what can happen is even just doing like something with hyaluronic acid in it, something very mild with a rose water or with even a diluted apple cider vinegar that's raw, that should be really nice on the skin, can turn into acid burns here in these rosacea areas, for some of us. So that's unpleasant, and it's hard to heal up because we have trouble healing stuff up. So just a few drops of that honey, and then I let that sit really just like 1 minute at this point. But if you're impatient, just even just kind of using it as a little scrub is fine. And it's, it has a micro exfoliating factor to it too, which is really helpful because when you can't wash your face and you can't like scrub it anymore, you really don't get to exfoliate, which means that moisturizers don't go in properly and nutrients can't get in properly. So my skin is in much, much better condition just from using that honey for the last few weeks. You can even see it in my really shitty, Zoom camera situation, that it's just like it's a cleaner face, it's less matte, it's more glowy. And then what I do is I do this much. I just, make sure your hand is fully over this. I just dump it over, and then you end up getting, I don't know, 2 or 3 drops equivalent of the sunflower oil. And then I've already washed my face, but it's fine to do this again. I just kind of do like that, on your skin is damp at the time. So it's a really light oil. You can go heavier if you want to, but for me, using a coconut oil has always caused acne for me, even on my driest times. And it also kind of gets in my hair, makes everything else greasy. It also can inflame sometimes. If you look at the inflammation kind of index for different oils, coconut oil is sort of right in the middle. For some things, it's just very, very slightly inflammatory. So for people who have unhealthy inflammation responses at this point due to autoimmune and other issues, it can be tricky to use that. So I don't use coconut oil on my face. And you have to be careful with it. You can do it on your body some. If you're in a very cold climate, it can be real good because it's very emollient. But something heavier like a shea butter or something like that, I only use as like deep in the like desert sun kind of summer. I will use that as it's the best ever sunscreen, but it's not for face moisturization. So if you have other kinds of light oils that work for you, great. Obviously, everything is sort of hit and miss with skincare, but you probably have sunflower oil in the house or something similar. I do find this works differently than safflower oil. Sunflower oil has a ton of vitamin E in it, like all the vitamins that you think of that your skin needs. Sunflower oil has a lot in them, and it's the best bang for your buck, even in a more expensive time when Ukraine is the biggest maker of sunflower oil, and obviously has a lot of limitations in its supply chain right now. But the honey, just make sure that the honey is as raw as you can get it and as not messed with as you can get it. For several reasons, you'll find that honey's not regulated a lot, and so you can say anything about honey and it could just not be true. But what you can do is, if you see a cream honey, then you're going to know that that's raw, because when you heat up the honey, that's when it turns into liquid. It's not to say that raw honey can't be liquid. Much of raw honey is, but a cream honey is honey that is generally like blended up between it's very much pre-crystalline stage. And it kind of operates sort of like a honey butter would if you were to like, put it on toast or something, except without the butter. And the butter is delicious also. So if you want to make sure that you're getting a raw honey and you're not doing your own honey and you don't know your beekeeper really well, I would recommend just getting a cream honey, and then you're going to know that it's raw. Now, if you do that, just take a little, maybe a tablespoon out of that. That's going to be more concentrated than what I have, which was started out as a liquid honey and still is. So, in a 4 ounce mason jar, let's say, if you did a tablespoon of that cream honey, which is going to be real concentrated, you could do, 3 more tablespoons, and you'd be up to a regular liquid honey kind of consistency. So at that point, you'll probably want to dilute further. So you might even just do like a teaspoon, and then just kind of stir it through. You don't have to stir it right away, but it'll start kind of infusing into the water over time. So you can leave it overnight and then just kind of go back and stir it. But anyway, it's a cheap date. What can I say? It's the cheapest thing you'll ever use on your skin. And if it works for you, great. For me, it has really decreased the inflammation, and decreased the sensitivity in my skin when I put something on my skin, and it's enabled me to wash my face some, and I'm even being able to use some of um, my nicer, previously helpful, kind of micro exfoliating and slightly, kind of alpha hydroxy types of things. I'm being able to use that again a little bit, which is very nice, to be able to do. So anyway, hope that's helpful.